Welcome to NeuroNoodle's Neurofeedback and Neuropsychology Podcast, featuring tech legend Jay Gunkelman. He's the man who has read well over 500,000 brain scans, and Dr. Marie Swingle, author of iMinds. Our goal is to provide information and promote options for better mental health. The NeuroNoodle Podcast is supported by listeners and businesses just like you.
I'm like, why it's so quiet?
I'm fully protected today. Sky's on duty here.
Okay, good. Well, what any of those questions from last night?
Oh yeah, those are good. Did you see my latest craziness?
No.
For donations, people need to get around to it. So here's a round to it. So these will be handed out at the summit for people to get around to it. Anyway, silliness, you know.
Magnificent, Jay. You are magnificent.
Well, you know, when I can't get out and I come up with these crazy ideas, and there's people online that'll make shit for you, you know.
Well, any of the things from last night, cold.
Oh, there's a whole stack of them.
I know.
You know,
cold feet and neurofeedback. What's that all?
Well, there's a few possibilities. Number one, you may have been sitting there immobile for 45 minutes or something with your feet up and not active, so they're not going to have a lot of circulation. And if in fact it's a vasoconstrictive sympathetic overarousal of some sort, that can be dealt with HRV, heart rate variability training. You can do temperature training, but, you know, temperature training is a very slow changing signal, and it's not that easy to train without some specialized, fancier equipment. You can't just take a thermometer, you'd stick up some dog's butt, you know, and hold on to it and get feedback from it. It's just too slow a changing signal. You need more sensitivity. We had built a temperature device that used the derivative for feedback and then displayed the absolute temperature as well, which worked pretty well. But, you know, HRV does a good job balancing pure sympathetic balance, and that'll take care of cold feet. I would suggest also that there's a possibility that somebody may need a vascular screening for femoral artery sufficiency. You know, there's those people that travel around the United States, Lifeline screening. You probably see the ads for them online. You know, there's an ultrasound tech with a device, and he's going to put gel on that sucker and check your neck and the back of your neck and your heart and your leg, and make sure you got pulse in your feet. You know, and all of that gives a screening, and it catches some people, you know, with blocked up arteries that are just before they would end up having serious problems. You can have up to 60% stenosis. Well, stenosis, what's that? A shine on a shoe or something? You know, no. It's a blockage in an artery, a clog of stuff on the side that cuts down on the flow diameter. You can cut down 60% of the flow diameter before you start to actually get symptoms. But by that time, you got to have something done about it, you know. And you know, there's things you can have done. There's carotid endarterectomies where they can actually roto-rooter out the blood vessel, you know, and those used to be more hazardous as a surgery, but they've become really quite routine at this point. Previously, when they would clamp your arteries so that they could actually open it up and strip it out, they assume that the other side is going to have cross circulation through the circle of Willis, and you can clamp one carotid and it'll be okay. Well, for some people, when you clamp the carotid, one half of the brain went a little bit too, not well perfused. So the EEG techs used to do monitoring, and when they clamped the artery, we'd have about 20 to 30 seconds to tell them whether the brain was going to tolerate that or whether the person was going to basically have like a stroke on the table during the cleaning. So, but now they do the surgery with the person in a barbiturate coma. So you don't really need, oxygen. Your brain is not demanding any flow of any sort. And but they put you into a coma, strip out the blockage, put everything back together, bring it back out of your depth of the anesthesia coma. And that works really well. It put a lot of EG techs out of a high-paying job position for, but that's okay. The end result was the good thing, and that's better surgical outcomes.
Restless leg syndrome, that came up, Jay.
Well,
What is that?
first of all, restless leg syndrome is a real thing, and it's a sleep disorder. And there are some people that have some symptoms and they self-diagnose it as restless leg, and it may not be. So first of all, if you have restless leg syndrome, it's something that's usually going to end up making your sleep at night really terrible. You wake up, your legs start to kick and twitch, and as you start to fall asleep, there's a crawly feeling like you have to move, and that basically makes sleep onset and wakes you up at night. So disturbed sleep gives you chronic daytime excessive sleepiness. And if you're a DOES, DOES, disorder of excessive sleepiness, that's what a sleep lab is looking for. That's their client, and restless leg syndrome is a treatable sleep disorder. They treat it with dopamine related medications, similar to treating Parkinsonism. And it's a treatable sleep disorder. And you can treat it very similarly to the treatment of Parkinsonism with SMR style training, suppression of beta. Usually, restless leg syndrome has an excess of beta, but then excesses of beta are not uncommon in sleep disorders.
SMR and restless leg syndrome. Our good friend Radar came in our Q&A last night and was asking about that. And then he said, is it common for SMR benefits to reverse? I guess he was using Seaburn Fisher's FPO2 theta protocol.
First of all, SMR, if you just train SMR and that's all you train, who the hell designed that? I mean, come on. SMR is a technique and it's balanced by a counterbalance. You're teaching somebody to inhibit function, stabilize, stabilize, stabilize. And the brain has to balance stabilization and excitation. If you don't balance them, you end up spinning off too high or too low. SMR can create an underarousal. If you train it to its logical extreme, you're going to be underaroused. But if you get that way, the therapist who didn't design it properly has put you in a bad spot. However, if you're being treated properly, as you become underaroused, the counterbalance protocols usually are put in place, and that's usually some sort of either frontal suppressed training or frontal beta training. And there was another question about frontal training skipping some frequency bands as well.
Yeah.
And that question I think is really an interesting one and deserves a little bit of data. And let me.
Oh, hold on. I got to turn on the magic switch here, Jay.
So This is a normal person, high functioning ADD, low functioning ADD, as measured in the CPT task. This is when they get the go signal. And this is a joint time frequency analysis. This is frequency up to 74 hertz, and this is time. This is 1,100 milliseconds. There's a base period of 100 milliseconds, and changes in the rhythmicity following that are shown as colors based on wavelet analysis. And the hotter colors of red and yellow are increases, and the darker colors are decreases in rhythmicity. So this is event-related synchronization, desynchronization as a plot. Now, the spot in the front here is lighting up. That's the spot that controls hand movement for the right hand, which has got a mouse in it that has to click a button when you see the word go. Well, the symbol that tells you have to respond. So what we're seeing is the activation of the premotor area that's going to end up giving you the button push. Now, the higher functioning and lower functioning ADD are using the same circuit. It's just that there's less and less power in it. This is approximately 17 hertz. And 15 to 18, 16 to 20. Remember the different definitions of beta that you've seen across the years? They're all shooting for this particular beta. This is beta that's related to a task. It's not there when you sit there twiddling your thumbs in the resting state. It pops up when your brain needs to do something. It says this is event related. So it's not there when there's no event. It's there when there's an event. You got, oh, geez, I got to hit this button. So that's the event, and here's the beta. So up front, when we're suppressing stuff up front, we're not trying to interfere with what we consider compensatory or functional frequencies of SMR and the lower beta frequencies, again, around 17 hertz. Quite often, we'll suppress from 18 up or 20 and up to catch muscle or some specific beta frequency that's problematic. Bad betas in the 20s usually. Can be 18 to 25 or something, and you need to get down to 18 to catch the lower edge of it. But usually the beta that's problematic is hyperexcitable cortex betas in the 20s. So this compensatory or functional pattern is left alone. We don't suppress between 12 and 18 generally, because again, these are compensatory or functional patterns, and the hyperexcitable cortex that's problematic is faster than that, and obviously the alpha or theta or delta problems that might also be there are below that. There was anyway. This is, I think, a good one. The other one that was asked is, what's the relationship between this SMR and circulation? So
Yeah.
well, it's not just circulation. That's like flow, and this is perfusion. Perfusion is the ability to deliver oxygen and glucose, which is functional flow. It's not just having a blood vessel there. Is the blood vessel capable of delivering something? And when you have ischemia, like post-traumatic ischemia, migraine ischemia, vascular change with aging causing ischemia, various clogs and vascular dynamics that are changed based on structure. The ischemia basically changes brain function, and you get hypoperfusion. Here's the mean of perfusion at 0. This is a partial correlation. This is 2 and 3 standard deviations up. This solid line is statistical significance of an increase. So here's the mean, statistically decreased, significantly, and 2 and 3 standard deviations. So the theta and alpha band from about 3-4 hertz up to about 11 hertz or so is hypoperfusion. At about 11 hertz, you go into a neutral positive perfusion above the mean. It's a positive perfusion. The brain is on, but not really active.
Hey everyone, if you're enjoying the show and want to help us keep it going, please consider supporting us on Patreon. Your support helps improve the content and brings on great guests and grow the show. Join us on Patreon at patreon.com/NeuroNoodle. But hey, if supporting financially isn't in the cards right now, no worries. You can still help us out for free by liking, subscribing, and sharing this episode. It really makes a difference and helps more people find the show. If we've earned it, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Hey everyone, here's a quick message from our good old buddy Joshua Moore at Alternative Behavioral Therapy.
I'm preparing to do an introduction to QEEGD phenotypes. This is my first workshop on the topic, and this is just the introductory overview of the project. This is going to be very, very basic. So let's review each phenotype. We're just going to go through them one by one. If you look at the DSM-1, 2, or 3, and you look at the first chapter, it actually acknowledges that the DSM in mental health is just, quote, a descriptive adaptation, unquote. We're going to customize the interventions and tailor them to the individual's brain activity, not just applying the treatments or trainings to the individual's phenotype and maybe even their variants, but also customizing the protocols themselves to fit that person's individual unique frequency patterns. Maybe a dozen ways to have excessive energy in your nervous system, and then there's an infinite amount of ways to relate poorly to that excessive energy, which means that there is a lot of variations in what someone might call anxiety. And that doesn't mean that we're talking about the same thing when we're talking about anxiety. So complicated stuff. But when we look at a brain map, we get some basis for which we can start talking about what is this energy. Then we have to go to the client. We have to start talking to the client about what is your association to this specific kind of energy that I can see now. Then we get to care about things that insurance doesn't restrict us on. We get to care about like the person in a broader way. 85% improvement in mental health report following pairing a medication with a specific phenotype. You know, geez. Okay, have you seen 85% in any mental health studies for any medication? I'm going to be going over a whole bunch of different types of tests, assessments, and things that can be used that have things called neurocorrelates, which you saw some of those already, better success outcomes. That's what we really want. We need better predictive power. We need better individualization. That's what we want.
Now, if you've got an impaired flow because of ischemia, there's decreased flow. And let me do some really bad art on top of this.
I missed the bad art.
This is a blood vessel. I'm going to make a little kink in the hose. We all played with the hose when we were kids, didn't we?
Yeah,
you can kink a hose, and if you kink the hose, you can stop the water flowing. Well,
especially when you give it to a sibling.
This kinks here is basically a schematic of ischemia. There's something decreasing the flow downstream. So a big amount of flow here ends up with a less flow down here because of the kink in the hose. Ischemia. Now, this could be pressure, post-traumatic ischemia, could be a developmental anomaly like familial migraine. It could be. I mean, there's a lot of things that this could come from. A tumor pushing on it. I mean, for goodness sakes, the various things that could make this are innumerable. But how do you fix this? Well, if we make a small demand for function in these frequencies downstream, the brain controls its own blood supply. It will open up blood vessels that supply the areas that are demanding flow. And if there's a small demand, there'll be an attempt to open this up. Now, over time, the ischemia can be taken care of by this gentle activation. So what happens if you make well, we say, well, why don't we just do this and open that sucker up? Just damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. We're going to just make a gigantic demand for flow and force it open. Well, I'm sorry, but this big demand is got a impaired flow. And this big demand is going to create a perfusion pressure of oxygen that drops. So you're going to have hypoxia. Hypoxia creates edema. Edema is pressure. Pressure is going to make this worse. You can actually make so much demand that the impaired supply line may give you a closure pressure, and you end up with downstream cell death. This is why after a significant head trauma, they put some people into a coma so that they don't waste the energy on something foolish like consciousness, and they let the brain heal before they bring the person back to end up wanting to get back on the field and be very, very active and actually cause brain problems. So you have to take it easy. Over time, a gentle positive perfusion, which is in the SMR frequency range. It's above the mean. Now, SMR is a specific frequency in the sensory motor and somatomotor area, C3, CZ, C4. Sometimes you can do SMR-like training and have the second electrode somewhere else in order to make this frequency to help open up the blood vessels, for instance, in the temporal area. So CZ to the temporal or C4 to the temporal. I mean, there's a lot of different electrode combinations from central to temporal that can be used that can end up giving you a gentle positive perfusion to end up helping with temporal ischemia, like migraine ischemia, or the frontotemporal, which are very common as locations of ischemia post-traumatic. If you look at the statistics of where the brain can be injured in head injury, the most common are the orbital frontal, the lateral frontal, and anterior temporal areas. Now, you can fall on the back of your head and have the injury at the back of the head, but the most common spots are, again, orbital frontal, and then the brain has kind of slid forward, and the cribriform plate underneath the front of the brain. If you ever have a chance to look at the inside of a skull, the base of the brain is sitting on top of what looks like hostile territory. It looks like it's all there ready to rip it apart. There's bony, sharp protrusions underneath the front of the brain. So if the brain goes sliding back and forth across it, you can actually end up with contusions on the orbital frontal surface. So there was a famous court case where the expert was handed a skull, and they asked about how rough the inside of it was, and he said, well, these models are all overdone. And it turned out it was an actual brain. It was an actual skull, not a plastic modeling of one. And so he made a fool of himself. Anyway, but lawyers making fools of themselves. What's new? So let me clear my scribbles and get my cursor back. So the neutral positive perfusion from about 11 to about 16 ends up being the area of neutral positive perfusion. If you get a little faster, you have a chance of possibly catching the uprise as you get to increased perfusion. Get a little bit slower, you have the ability to cut down on the amount of perfusion that you're demanding. So adjusting your frequencies by just a little bit faster or slower on the band that you train can change dramatically the amount of perfusion that it's demanding. Anyway, and this is Ian Cook's work, the Journal of EEG and Clinical Neurophysiology from 1998. But this is actually from a paper. Let me assessing accuracy of topographic EEG mapping for determining local brain function. So this is that paper. And if you scroll through, they talk about electrode sites and whatnot, but this doesn't matter where in the brain. It's the perfusion is identified and correlated with the EEG function. So this is the original graphics, and right straight out of the paper. You got to get credit where credit's due, and Ian Cook and Andy Luchter have worked together over the years. The concept of accordance as a measurement in EEG corresponding with perfusion is actually something that was Ian Cook and Andy Luchter's metric. And it was licensable from UCLA. There weren't too many licenses, actually paid for and pulled for it, but it was at one point it was a licensable metric. It's in public domain now. You can find accordance as a measurement within Brain Vision Analyzer, and I think they've got it executed also in EEG Lab. So anyway, again, got to give credit where credit's due, and those were the authors. So
staying on SMR, Jay, what is the SMR blood flow connection exactly?
Well, that's it. The SMR frequency band is a neutral positive perfusion. The brain is gently on. Barry Sturman identified it in cats that didn't move, but they were attentive, like they were watching a target mouse. They were ready to pounce, but they're still. And that holding still ended up being the thing. Now, Barry originally was hired. They trained some cats how to make SMR, and that was done in an operant Skinner box. Actually, I think a granddaughter of Pavlov or some relative of Pavlov actually worked in his lab and would take the cat's feet and tap on the bar to teach them this is the spot, do it here. So it wasn't just random dumb luck in the deal, but they kind of primed them a little bit. But they taught them how to press a bar to get brain stimulation for a pleasure center, and SMR would be the thing that they'd have to make in order to get the stimulation. Before that, they worked for milk with a little bit of chicken broth in it as just a routine reward. But those cats, instead of being sacrificed after the experiment, were put into the experiment by NASA, where they were looking at monomethylhydrazine, rocket fuel, and the janitors would have like convulsions and problems if they were cleaning up a spill. And some of the astronauts had some pretty goofy perceptual things. This little green men outside the capsule and things like that. So they thought maybe the rocket fuel, in the capsule got them, hallucinating in some fashion. So they wanted to figure this all out. So this is science. And what do you do? Well, you do a dose response curve, of course. Little dose, a little bit bigger dose, and what happens? So they had these cats, and they would increase the dose, and what the monomethylhydrazine was doing is stripping away GABA. All your inhibitory neurotransmitters are being stripped away, so your brain is getting more and more and more and more hyperexcitable, and eventually convulsions and death would happen. Well, the ones who were trained how to make SMR suddenly became in their frozen posture. They didn't have their seizures. It ruined his dose response curve, which is why you don't bring animals that have been used in another experiment into another experiment. They contaminated the pool that they were testing, and luckily they did. And also, luckily, Barry recognized it. Oh, geez. This SMR stuff that we trained is good for not having a seizure. And then, I mean, the work with Finley and all of the other people that end up working with him to prove that humans with epilepsy could end up being treated effectively, how to control their seizures. So, which is what I did a little bit of that at the end of my career, just working specifically with intractable epilepsy in order to kind of make some solid evidence that neurofeedback can actually control brain function. These people had been told that they had to have brain surgery or they would probably die from their epilepsy, sudden death from epilepsy, SUDEP. So they didn't end up choosing to have the brain surgery, and they became medication-free and seizure-free. The meds were reduced by the physicians under proper medical care, not pulled by me, that's for sure. And you basically end up with somebody who's seizure-free and medication-free. At Sassoon this year, Isabella, who is now seizure-free about 7, maybe 8 years, she's a tennis pro in Europe, and she's going to pop back over. She graduated with honors in Baylor on a tennis scholarship. But before her tennis scholarship, she was an intractable epileptic who was having hundreds of seizures a day. So, if you can turn that around, the routine things that you see clinically are a piece of cake by comparison.
Rumination came up, Jay. I got these thoughts in my head.
It came up again and again, did it?
And again. Swing better, swing better.
So, that the anterior cingulate is a spot that gives us cognitive and emotional flexibility when it's working. When it's not working, you can be stuck on or stuck off, but you don't have the flexibility. If you're stuck on, you could be obsessive compulsive. The overfocus, obsessive compulsive, or you could be locked off, amotivation, lack of initiation, anhedonia, akinetic mutism as the logical extreme. So it's an anterior cingulate disturbance, and you have to train it at the anterior cingulate. You can't fix it from somewhere else. You have to train it where it is. Rumination is driven by the anterior cingulate. Now, it a little bit further forward is more affective, a little bit more like FZ is more cognitive. AFZ is a little bit more affective. FZ is a little bit more cognitive. So there's a little territorial shift. You can tell based on the EEG kind of where the major deviation is just by looking at the spectrum. And so it's always good to be guided by a map when you're hunting around for something. And if you're looking for a spot to train, a good set of maps gives you good coordinates as to where to place things and what frequencies to alter. So if you have rumination, you have a pretty good idea where the disturbance is. You just don't know whether it's going to be a theta or an alpha or a beta deviation or a thalamocortical dysrhythmia, a slow and fast coupled. So you've got to go there and look to see what kind of failure mode it has. The behavior will tell you kind of what network is failed. It won't tell you how it's failed. So that's why symptom-based diagnosis doesn't predict treatment. It would tell you where to work, but it won't tell you what's wrong there. something's wrong there. It doesn't tell you what's wrong there. You have to go and look, and then you know how to treat. So, the research domain criteria that NIH is looking for is hopefully going to slowly give us a new DSM orientation towards biomarkers and genetics and so forth. That was DSM-5 was supposed to have been able to do, but kind of flaked at the end there.
Well, Jay, that was our Q&A from Wednesday night. We do it every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. Eastern, and 4 p.m. Pacific. If you got a question, pop in, or if we missed you, send an email to Pete at NeuroNoodle.com. Send me the email, and I'll share it with Jay if he can't make it, and we'll answer the questions here, Jay.
Sounds like a deal.
Speaking of a deal.
Did the coin thing make it onto the recording at the beginning, or?
Yeah, it's there. We're gonna have it.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that people that wanted to donate to students would end up getting around to it. This is around to it.
It's got my name all over it.
And if you attend the Sassoon Summit, we've got a few different coins. I got nothing better to do. I can't leave the house really, and I come up with these crazy ideas. So
Sun City
around to it. I mean, who would do this? But anyway,
who would, Jay?
We're going to have a 3-day EEG party, and I hope people can pop in for it. Mary sent out an announcement today. We are running out of seats, so the live stream is pretty darn good quality. So, but face to face is still, how do you get to rub elbows with Lee Steinberg? Well, not on video, yeah. So, and Isabella's there. You can end up chatting directly with her. We do have direct discussions on lots and lots of really good topics. So, Parkinsonism, the whole SMR and beta thing, all of those kinds of things are going to be handled with good, complete discussion.
Hey everyone, if you're enjoying the show and want to help us keep it going, please consider supporting us on Patreon. Your support helps improve the content and brings on great guests and grow the show. Join us on Patreon at patreon.com/NeuroNoodle. But hey, if supporting financially isn't in the cards right now, no worries. You can still help us out for free by liking, subscribing, and sharing this episode. It really makes a difference and helps more people find the show. If we've earned it, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. The NeuroNoodle Podcast is supported by listeners and businesses just like you. Hey everyone, here's a quick message from our good old buddy Joshua Moore at Alternative Behavioral Therapy.
I'm preparing to do an introduction to QEEGD phenotypes. This is my first workshop on the topic, and this is just the introductory overview of the project. This is going to be very, very basic. So let's review each phenotype. We're just going to go through them one by one. If you look at the DSM-1, 2, or 3, and you look at the first chapter, it actually acknowledges that the DSM in mental health is just, quote, a descriptive adaptation, unquote. We're going to customize the interventions and tailor them to the individual's brain activity, not just applying the treatments or trainings to the individual's phenotype and maybe even their variants, but also customizing the protocols themselves to fit that person's individual unique frequency patterns. Maybe a dozen ways to have excessive energy in your nervous system, and then there's an infinite amount of ways to relate poorly to that excessive energy, which means that there is a lot of variations in what someone might call anxiety. And that doesn't mean that we're talking about the same thing when we're talking about anxiety. So, complicated stuff. But when we look at a brain map, we get some basis at which we can start talking about what is this energy. Then we have to go to the client. We have to start talking to the client about what is your association to this specific kind of energy that I can see now. Then we get to care about things that insurance doesn't restrict us on. We get to care about like the person in a broader way. 85% improvement in mental health report following pairing a medication with a specific phenotype. Geez. Okay, have you seen 85% in any mental health studies for any medication? I'm going to be going over a whole bunch of different types of tests, assessments, and things that can be used that have things called neurocorrelates, which you saw some of those already, better success outcomes. That's what we really want. We need better predictive power. We need better individualization. That's what we want.